We just wanted to come on here and say happy World Mental Health Day. I hope that this day is something that you just enjoy. Take this moment. If someone wishes you a happy World Mental Health Day, wish it back. Ask someone, how are you really?
Day.
And remember, we are not alone. Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Love you. Mwah.
Welcome to Emotional Support. Thank you for joining us. And now, here's your host, Alessandra Torresani.
Are these your doggies behind you?
These are my pup. This is Pee Wee Herman. He passed away, but he lived a fabulous, almost 15 years, and was just he's actually the reason. Pee Wee's the reason why I started the podcast and why I really call it emotional support, is because he was my emotional support on set, and he was my emotional support when I was flying and stuff like that. So that's so fun. Are you a dog lover?
Yes. Well, it's funny. I actually wasn't, because I grew up with a cat.
Oh.
And it's not that I didn't like dogs, but I wasn't
You weren't
really a dog
familiar.
lover.
Yeah.
Yes. And then my show that I was just on, everybody is a huge dog lover. And I grew to love dogs. Like, I would take the dogs for walks. And now we have a almost 4-year-old now English bulldog. And I'm like my friends who've known me from before are like, who are you?
Who are you and who have you become? I have to tell you, I have always wanted an English bulldog. So, I think that they are just so delicious and so scrumptious and so smelly and so cute. Is it everything that I'm describing and more?
Yeah, they're the most loving, and such personality. They look at you like you know what they're thinking. And
Oh
I
my
love them.
gosh. Oh, well, I'm so happy. Well, so you have your own emotional support dog. So that's very exciting. I'm here with Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome to Emotional Support. This is such a special treat because it's World Mental Health Day. And we're releasing this on World Mental Health Day. And your book is coming out on World Mental Health Day, which is today. And we are going to get into that. But I have to say, I'm just so excited to talk to you because I selfishly, no pun intended with the book name, which is funny. I selfishly love talking with other actors, and that's one of my favorite conversations. As someone who is, yes, it's always going to be an easy conversation. It's always going to flow. Someone's always going to be chatterbox. It's most likely me, but if I'm lucky, I get someone else that's at the level that wants to just blab. But it's so exciting because we share so many similar experiences, and we've gone through so many different scenarios and tough times and the stress and the anxiety of auditions and things that I would say the psychiatrist that I may interview or the specialist in X, Y, and Z may not understand what I'm going through. So this is very fun, selfishly, for me to do this. And I have so many questions for you, and we're going to tiptoe around some things. So if I don't say names of things, I just want to preface, we are currently in the middle of a SAG strike, and so we are not allowed to promote or talk about past projects and say names and stuff, but we will do a little clue here and there so you will understand what we are talking about. So welcome, Stephanie. Stephanie, how did you become an actress? Is this something that you always had a passion for, that you were like, this is definitely the career for me, the one that is super hard, all about rejection.
Yeah, seriously.
Giving me all kinds of mental health issues. Like, this is the job for me.
No. I took my first acting class when I was 29 years old.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes, first ever. And then I remember doing my first monologue, and when the monologue ended, I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
And but in a beautiful way.
Sure.
I felt, not to sound all actory and everything, but I felt I just connected with the real me, and that I've been wearing masks my whole life. And it was weird. It felt like being in a character's shoes allowed me to sort of reveal myself to myself. And so I think the first reason was more almost therapeutic. Like I was like, I need this. I need to do this.
How did you fall into it? I mean, were there people around you? I always, the reason why I ask is because so many people will come on the show and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to be an actor, or I, always wanted my kid to be in this, or my kid wanted to do this and I don't know how to start. How does one start at the age of 29 if it's not through college, if it's not when they're young kid actors? I'm blown away by that. I think that's so unbelievable that you are here and you started there.
It's not the regular, it's not the path that,
but it's
the
an
conventional
amazing path and it's unique to you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I just got myself into, I had this little voice for many years that was like, what if I took an acting class? What if I took an acting class? And finally, I just took the phone book and asked teachers, went through teachers and found this theater class in New York City. Wow. And it was amazing. But before that, I studied business in school and I worked at Chanel in marketing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was not at all in the arts or creative field.
Well, I mean, marketing is very creative, though. You have to be a creative person to be in marketing. So that's
true.
It's probably always been inside your bones. You just had no idea that it could be expressed in so many different ways. Do you ever miss the marketing side? You're like, no one's ever asked me that before.
I don't miss working in an office, but it's now writing a book and having to do all the business side of it. And we're developing an app for it. I find that side of my brain being used again. And it's kind of fun, but I do love acting so much.
And I think
more.
It's really cool that you've had so many lives that now you get to use all these different lives that you've been in and put them into one topic, being the book, and being able to share all that. And I'm sure a lot of people who don't understand marketing, who don't understand the business side of things, they could be creatives that are writing a book and then they're like, well, what do I do now? And you're like, no, let me put my business hat on now, the business role, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to get it done. And so that's really cool. I'm so wow. And so what was the first, without saying what project it was, what was the first, did you book your first audition? Were you one of those? Did you, do the grind over and over again? What was kind of the first moment for you where you're like, oh, I can actually make money off this? I mean, I don't know how much, but I mean, you could make money off of it.
Yeah. The money was like
nothing ever.
Well, I did commercials.
Oh, that's where it is. That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's how I made the money. And then I was lucky. I booked a lead role in an independent movie and really early. And the movie did great. It was in Tribeca. It had a great review in the New York Times. It was in a lot of festivals in Spain. But then the movie came out in New York City, and then they had to be taken out of the theaters because they didn't have the movie rights. The music rights.
You are kidding me. After all that, it went through film festivals and everything, and they didn't figure it out till then? Oh my gosh. Well, was it a moment, though, where you felt like some sort of validation, like what I'm doing is right and I'm on the right path? So that's...
Yeah. Look. I knew... It was both at the same times. I knew I was in the right path. I knew I had talent, not to sound like, pretentious or anything. No. And at the same time, I also doubted that completely. Yeah. Like it was weird. Right. Then I'd find myself in projects and I was like, oh my God, who am I to do this? They have so much more experience. I know nothing about theater really, or, so it was both at the same time.
Sure. Did you do a lot of theater as well?
No, I didn't. I just did a couple of plays, one off Broadway, which was an absolute disaster. but it was called Mistress Macbeth.
Wow.
Yeah. And I played a witch. But I was always around because my class was a theater class. So actors in it always made references to plays and everything. And I felt like, oh my God, I don't know.
Sure. Anything. Was there ever a moment when you were first starting out where when you felt those feelings of like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here, that you ever were like, you know what, I'm going to step away? I mean, what was kind of the the moving force for you that kept you staying strong in the business?
I think just really loving, it's just true love of that feeling when sort of forget myself and I'm in the moment, like the magic of that.
Sure.
And I think what I realized, it's weird because talking about bringing it back to mental health too, I think it took me about 15 years to realize, oh my God, all the things we strive for as an actor, listening, being in the moment, finding the truth, all that is actually the best lesson to be a healthy human being and connect with other people well too. I'm like, that's our lesson for life.
No, that's really what it's all about. And I think that's what's so special about being an actor is because you get to experience all these different emotions. You get to feel all your feels, and then you get to do this and help other people all across the world that you may never even know be like, oh my God, I've been in that moment. Even if you're playing a character and you really are just so in touch with yourself. And I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of actors get so lost in a character or get so lost in, let's say, the feelings that they need to numb themselves and they need to step themselves out. And that's when, there'll be drugs or drinking and, other sort of things that you have to be able to find a balance. You have to be able to find a way to kind of step out of that moment, leave it at the door and go back to your normal life. Normal. I use that in quotes. But it is really so special that you do get to do that. That's what the
to
job
let go.
is.
It's that feeling of completely letting
that's
go.
The job. Like, how cool is that? I can't think of any other job in the world where it's like that, So what was the big moment for you where you're like, wow, I've made it, but I'm scared shitless right now. And how am I going to do this? What was that moment for you?
It was my first lead role in a studio movie. It was a big comedy with the lead actor from The Office, Steve Carell. Oh, I can say actors.
Yeah, you can say
Steve
actors,
Carell
right?
and Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
And so I went through the auditioning process and did really well in the auditioning process. And then I found myself on set. And when I got there, I just completely lost my confidence.
Wow.
And it translated by every take I would judge myself. I was worried that, what are they going to think? They're going to think that wasn't good. And so it made me unable to just create and be me and do my stuff. I was just trying to fit into what I thought they wanted, which is a killer for, an actor.
Yeah.
I driving to set, my heart would beat out of my chest. I had, my legs were shaking.
Wow.
And it not only impacted my acting, but it also made me feel like I felt like I didn't belong. So I didn't relate to people. I didn't connect with people. It was not a good experience. I mean, I don't think anybody would know that, but inside I would go home at night and be like,
and I can finally breathe. Right. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And that's a really scary thought and a scary feeling, especially I can relate in the sense of being on a set and being overwhelmed by the people you're with. For instance, I had an audition one time and it was with a very famous actress and she's an older lady and she's, very, very, very big. And it was a moment where I don't belong here. This is insane. I shouldn't be even in this room with her. I was testing with her. We were screen testing for her husband, who was a famous director, and he was recording. And I'm like, what is going on? And I remember when I left there, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I ruined that audition or that. It was like, I don't deserve to be here. And that's imposter syndrome now, which is something that I never knew what that was or what that definition was. I just was like, I have this feeling. This is what I feel.
Yes. They're going to find out they made a huge mistake by having me here and they're going to fire me.
Yes.
That was exactly what I was.
Yes. Yes.
But what I learned later was, and at the time also, I was judging myself because I thought, oh my God, I can't handle the pressure.
Yeah.
And get it together. This is what you wanted your whole life. But what I learned was imposter syndrome happens when we're just in a situation that's a little bit, a step up from what we're used to do. if we look at it like, oh, of course I don't have it figured out because this is new, and it's okay. I don't need to pretend like I have it figured out.
Right. And was everyone at least kind on the set to you? Like where you felt like
so kind.
So that's what almost makes it worse, right? If they were a bunch of assholes, you'd be like, oh, well, see, it's not just them. I'm stressed out because the environment is bad. And it's like, they're nice. It's like, are you kidding me? Why do I feel this way?
But also I don't know what, because I started late, I've always been motivated if people are like with negative reinforcement. So if people don't believe in me or like, what are you doing? Who do you think you are doing? Then it like motivates me. But when people are super nice and believing in me, I'm going to fuck it up.
Right, right. And so when you finish that movie, you know, were you able to share, or even now, were you able to share with any of the actors that were on that set kind of what you were going through? Because I'm sure you were not, I'm not saying specifically on that set, but in life, I can guarantee you're not alone in those feelings. Like when, I mean, everyone feels that.
Exactly. No, so I didn't because I felt like I was a loser. And then a couple years later, this actually really helped me. I was on another movie with Kevin Bacon. And before we started shooting, we were doing pre-production and we were in a room to get all the actors were together. Everybody took a break and I was just with him. He was like studying his script. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I saw The Woodsman. Did you ever see that movie?
I didn't see The Woodsman. No.
He plays a pedophile in it. It's a really tough
wow.
role.
Okay.
But his performance really moved me. The movie I thought was pretty amazing. And so I said, I just want you to know, I thought you did an amazing job in that. And he looked at me with such humility and vulnerability. And he was like, oh my God, thank you so much for saying that. Not too many people watch that movie. And then he was like, I'm such a mess. I didn't sleep last night. I always get like this before a new movie. And in my head, I was like, wait, what? You're
like Kevin Bacon.
Exactly. And that moment helped me so much because I realized that we're all, you know, no matter how successful you are, how experienced you are, how people give you accolades and all that, we all have fear.
Sure.
And it's just about learning how to navigate those new environments and our emotions a little better and getting the tools that can help us do that.
Did you find after the movie that you did with Steve Carell, did you find the next project that you did, you still had those same feelings? Like did it almost in a PTSD way kind of like come up again and continue to come up?
It was the Kevin Bacon movie.
Oh, wow.
And so the funny thing is, and same thing, great auditioning process. Once I got on set, this same feeling, and I was like, oh, there it goes again. And then, you know, you're starting to spiral. But I actually came across this book by Deepak Chopra that was called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And at the time, I was not a self-help book person. I sort of poo-pooed this kind of stuff, but I bought the book and it just spoke to me so much, and that I went to the bookstore, got some flashcards, and I made myself little flashcards, takeaways from the book that helped me. And every morning before I would go on set, I would look at these flashcards. And it was a game changer because it gave me a point of focus. When I would start to have self-doubt take over and negativity, I was like, oh no, focus on giving, focus on listening, focus on embracing the unknown. All these principles, it sort of gave me a framework to cut out, to recalibrate.
You completely recalibrated your brain, which is wild because it takes people years and years and years of therapy and, you know, different types of therapists and different types of modalities to even figure that out. So I think that's so special.
We all come across amazing moments in therapy, and it's like a breakthrough, and you're like, yes, this is how I'm going to live from now on. But for me, the challenge was, how do I remember all these amazing insights and guidance? And then in a moment of stress, how do I actually access them in my brain? Because the negativity takes over. Or, you know, when I say negativity, I don't mean you have to be positive, but I mean like the
No.
doubt or the fear
No,
takes
of
over.
course, of course. It's a heaviness. I always say it's like a heaviness that's like slowly coming over, and it's like the black is coming up above the eyes, and you're like drowning, in these thoughts. And it's like, why are
Yes.
you drowning in these negative thoughts? Like they're false. It's fake. It's not real. Like step out of it,
Yeah.
snap out of it.
And so for me, I was like, I need a place that I can, in a moment of need, that I can turn to and
Mm-hmm.
have all these bits and pieces gathered, whether it's
Yeah.
notes from therapy or takeaways from books, or even just reminding myself of, some of moments where I felt good and
Sure.
I did difficult things.
Right.
And so and I call it a playbook. And it's almost like doing reps, when you go to at the gym and you just do the reps and slowly you get a little stronger.
Right.
Doing the reps every day on my playbook helps those thoughts become more habitual.
So after you did the movie with Kevin, did you continue on with the flashcards and other projects that you did? Did you bring those along with you?
Well, the book went on the bookshelf and the flashcards were in the book. And a few weeks later, I couldn't have told you what was in it, and I forgot about it. But 5 years ago is when actually it was my husband. We sort of are in this path of like growing and learning together, and he was like, "What if we had a place on our phone where we could put all these things?" And I was like, "Oh my God, the flashcards! That was the first versions. Let's do it in our phones." And so now it's an album on my phone.
Wow. And it's it's on the shelf because it's technically in your brain. It's there. It's like ingrained in you because you've done it so many times, which is so cool and so magical. Something that I read in the email that was sent to me about you was that you practice transcendental meditation, which is so fun for me because I do too. And it's something that I'm a firm believer. I live with bipolar 1 disorder. It's something that I discovered through acupuncture. An acupuncturist was actually the one that said, "Hey, you've been going through all these things. Has anyone ever told you might be living with bipolar disorder?" And it was after I had been on a set for 2 years up in Canada. I was living away from home for the first time, and I had my first panic attack, and it was on set, and no one knew but the hair and makeup people. Because I was crying and I was panicking, and they thought it was because my grandma had just passed away. So maybe, I was having a panic attack thinking I was having a stroke because she had a stroke. And the greatest thing was that no one on set knew except for some of the hair and makeup who fixed me. And one of the actors had a doctor come to set who was very sweet. And he said, "Don't even worry about it. I shouldn't tell you," and he really shouldn't have told me, but he did. He confidentially told me a very famous actor's name who had just had a panic attack, who he had given a beta blocker to, like he was giving me, because I was so scared. I was like, what is he giving me? He's giving me drugs, And he was like, everyone goes through this. Everyone has panic attacks. That's what you went through. And it was the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, because like you can't recognize it. I don't know if you've ever had one before, but it feels like you're having a stroke or a heart attack.
Yeah,
it's wild.
You feel like you're going to die.
Yeah,
like,
it's an out of body experience, and it was bizarre, but it made me feel so at peace knowing that this world famous actor was going through this, right? And I was like, oh my God, okay, so I'm not crazy. Anyways, long story short, I come back here years later of going to different types of therapies and things not really clicking and not really working. My husband is a very big TM practicer. And I was like, oh, you're crazy. When we first started dating, we went to Vegas one weekend and he had to meditate before we went down for the day. And I was like, are you insane? And he meditated by the pool at the Bellagio one time. And I was like, this guy is crazy. So,
and his head is bobbing. And
yes, exactly. And he's like, and I'm like, this is bizarre. Like, I'm trying to gamble. Like, I'm trying to do things. This is not the guy for me. And so what was interesting was he always would say to me, I'm never going to tell you to do it. I'm never going to push you to do this. But I truly believe it's going to help with your mood disorder. That's what I think it's going to help. So there was a weird moment a couple years ago where I felt a drive to go and learn TM, transcendental meditation. And it came through another friend of mine. And I never told him that I went to go and take a class. And so I went to the David Lynch Foundation. I was invited to go over and learn over there. And I went and I practiced. And I told him when I was like 4 days into my whole session of learning. And I was like, by the way, you know, and he couldn't believe that I had the same teacher as him. And full circle moment, the girl that played my sister in a movie, who was the one that brought me to the David Lynch Foundation, is the one that he actually told to go to TM years prior. So it was a full circle, weird moment.
The ripple effects.
It was a ripple effect.
Right?
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And I am telling you, if it was not for transcendental meditation, I would not have been able to have a pregnancy that I did years later. My baby practices TM. Like, she's 15 months old, and like, we sit down and we meditate, or she meditates with her dad every morning and like just relaxes. Obviously she doesn't have a mantra, but she you know, is enough in a space where it clicks for her. And so
That's amazing.
Just want to honor, that was such a long-winded explanation for me to get to here, but I need people to hear it, because it's something that has truly changed my life. And let me tell you, I have to be very honest. There were moments in the pregnancy, in the moments after postpartum, where there was no way you could get me to sit down for even 5 minutes and do it. You know, it's slowly, I'm getting back into it. But when you do it, it is a game changer. And when you meet other people that practice TM, it feels like a cult in the best way possible, where you're like, oh my God, you understand what I'm going through. Like, you understand this. So how did TM find you, and how did you find TM?
So I think I've been doing it for like 7 years now.
Wow.
And before that, when I did the Kevin Bacon movie, that was sort of my switch of like starting to learn a lot of practices. And then I was doing guided meditations on my phone, right?
Wow.
And I think after 3 years of that, it wasn't a regular practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard a lot about TM here and there. And I had this sort of drive like you. For me, it was because, you know, when you go there, they ask you, why are you doing this?
Yes.
And for me, I was like, I want to know who I am.
Oh,
I
love that.
I want to connect to this deeper part of myself. I know that I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
And that was what drove me to it. It's amazing.
It is.
It's incredible. At first, for me, the stages is at first, it's like, oh, this experience of meditating is so cool, blah, blah, blah. But then when you see what happens in your real life every day, how you're able to catch yourself more, you're more aware when your emotions take over, and you're able to bring it back. And I don't know, I feel like, and sometimes I skip it, you know, I get in when
it happens.
A lot of times it's when I shouldn't, it's when I get really busy, and I notice my mind gets overwhelmed a lot more easily. And also on set, like he said, meeting other people who do it. Christina Moses is an actress on the show that I was on, and she also does TM. And we would text each other after the lunch break or at the end of lunch break, and we were like, Medi, and we would go to each other's trailer, and
oh my gosh,
and it's so good to do together.
Yes, because it's so powerful, the energies together.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my gosh, what a cool experience to do that with someone on set, especially because set can be just so overwhelming, even if you're having the best time in the world, which I always find it is so fun. 99.9% of the time. There is always that 0.1%. But you know, there's something about that bond that you would have with someone where there's just a lot of energy when you walk on a set, no matter what it is. And so to be able to step back, I mean, the best naps I ever have are on set, and I'm not a nap person, but I find myself crashing so much because your emotions are so drained. So to reset like that with transcendental meditation is just so cool. I just think that's so awesome that's part of your practice. Now, does your husband practice TM as well?
Yeah.
Cool.
We learned together, and we often joke, we're like, oh my gosh, imagine if one of us didn't do it, the other would be like, here we go again, going to do your
No, but I have to tell you, that's exactly what it was like when I first started dating him. Like at first I was like, oh, this is funny. Like he's really weird and like he's like strange, but like whatever, I'll let him be. And then it almost got really frustrating because I was like, well, we have to go to this brunch. Like it was like a work brunch or something. And he's like, okay, but I have to meditate before we go. And I'm like, there's no time. Like there's no time. I was like, and I remember, I think it was a moment where he was like, well, then I can't go. I'm so sorry. And I just was like, what?
That's
And it was really frustrating because I'm like, I don't understand, what is this cult? What is this thing that has a hold of you? You know what I mean? And for him, it was like, this is what helps me breathe. Like, this is what helps me stay alive. This is what helps me focus. And if you want me to be the best boyfriend that I can be at the time, like, this is what it's going to be. If you want me to be the best husband, this is what it's going to be. The best father, this is what it's got to be. And so it's really interesting to kind of now be on the other side and understand that, of creating that boundary of like, no, this is something that I must do. Like, I feel like I need to do this right now, and it's what I have to do. So I think that's
and when
so
you
awesome.
when you do say that and take the time, you're so much better for the people around you.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're life-changingly better.
Yeah.
Completely. Now, tell me, how did this book come about? How were you like, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book right now. This is the next step in my life. How did Selfish happen?
Well, that's not the book. I wanted to write a book about boobs.
Stop it. That's incredible. What was it going to be about boobs?
Well, I'll tell you about this book, for the boob book, because my whole thing, I have small boobs. And I, as a teenager, you're like, you feel a little bit less than, you get teased, whatever. And then there was this whole movement about embrace your body, body love, self-love, all that. And I was thinking, I was like, and they still don't talk about boobs. And so I thought, do you remember the book, Go the Fuck to Sleep? That was a parody on A Good Night Moon.
Yes.
I was like, what if we did an illustrated book about boobs? That was a parody of a well-known book. And so instead of Oh, the Places You'll Go, I wrote a poem with my friend Natalie Wall, and it was called Oh, the Titties You'll Grow.
Incredible. And I have to be honest, I probably would read it to my daughter. Like, that's
right.
I finally have my dream boobs because there's milk in it. And like, I'm dreading the milk going away. I think it's the only reason why I'm still breastfeeding, because I just finally got the full B boobs that I wanted. Yeah.
Nice. Enjoy them while they last.
I am, because they're going away soon.
Yeah, I had the same thing. And then my friend, a makeup artist, Debbie Lelièvre, who I met in Canada on set, she is an amazing illustrator, and she did all the illustrations. And so I tried to shop this book around. But then COVID happened, and then nobody wanted to touch it. And COVID happened.
Which is so shocking, because I think it would be hilarious.
Yeah. People were like, titties? You can't call that. And it was written with a double D, But then during COVID, I'm an ambassador for Give an Hour. It's a mental health nonprofit. They reached out to me during COVID when everybody was on lockdown, and just to discuss about practices we all have. And so I told them about TM. And then I told them about this principle of creating your own playbook for life, with all the things that help you heal, grow, thrive. Right. They loved it. They were like, we want to bring this concept to our community during COVID and encourage them to create their own playbook. So we did a series of webinars, and then people loved it. But everybody said, or not everybody, but the one question that kept coming up was, what do you put in your playbook? And I was like, it's personal. We're all different. Right. And then somebody suggested, can you write a workbook to help people create the content of their playbook? Right. And that's how this book came about. I can show you, because it's all, exercise.
Wow.
There's 8 exercises that are really help you take a journey into your own life, but through different angles, different perspectives, and to learn more about who you are, what matters to you, what helps you think better, feel better, and do better. And then your answers to the exercise will populate your playbook. You can create a playbook on paper, or you can put it in your own phone.
No, that's so amazing. And did you work with somebody? I mean, I feel like it's one thing to be able to sit down and write maybe your autobiography and be able to do that, but a workbook like that, it just seems so. How do you even, where does one even begin to know what to do? Like it was just all your own experiences of what you did for yourself.
For the past 10 years, I've worked with therapists, coaches,
Yeah.
read a lot of books. And so I looked at my own playbook and was like, how did I come up with this content? And
Sure.
I came up of versions of exercises that have helped me
Right.
discover insight that I was like, oh my God, yeah, this really helps me. And then I didn't want to do this book I wrote it alone, but I didn't want it to. I wanted to have the partnership with Give an Hour.
Right.
They gave me the support of mental health professionals who looked at each exercise
Incredible.
and
Wow.
helped me craft the science behind it. And then there's stories in there. It's not. I didn't also want to be just my story. I wanted to have other people's stories. So
Of
there's
course.
Give
Yeah.
an Hour ambassadors. There's stories of recovery, stories of there's a professional boxer, world champion boxer in there. There's
Wow.
a documentarian, a veteran with PTSD. There's, I think the reader will get different perspectives that will resonate to them, no matter, you know,
What
what
walk of life they
they're
come from.
struggling
Right.
with, or
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
I think that's so fantastic. I love that so much. It's interesting because I think that that's something that I like what you're doing. What I hope to do in regards to this podcast is having different types of voices on. I think that you would be surprised, right? An actress may listen to this going, oh, well, Stephanie's an actress and, we go through the same things. But you may find that listening to a veteran with PTSD, that there may be something that triggers you inside where you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I didn't go to war and maybe I didn't do this, but there's some kind of practice that they do that helps me out more so than I thought with the actress, or more so than I thought with the
Exactly.
neuroscientist. So I think that it's so smart of
Yes.
you to do that, to have different voices. I love that.
I love that you said this. I just read this memoir. I'm going to
Oh,
plug this
oh,
memoir
yes.
because Miles Borrero
Okay.
is a yoga teacher, and he wrote his memoir. He's trans, and it's called Beautiful Monster. And I was
Oh,
given an advance copy to read by my literary agent, and I was like, kind of, who am I? Like, I don't know if I'll breathe to know if I wanted to write a
sure.
testimonial. And my initial reaction, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, was, why me to
Why?
read
Yeah.
this? And I read his memoir, and exactly what you said. It was about human, just finding yourself, and
Mm.
it doesn't have anything to do with gender. I mean, it's his
It's his story.
journey
Yes.
through gender and finding his own identity, but I related to it every step of the way,
Wow.
because for me it was
Yes.
about finding myself.
Yes.
So I love that you say that we all have shared human experiences, no matter what the specifics are.
Oh, we all do, and that's why I really hope that maybe it'll be someone so random that you'll never even think will actually find your workbook the absolute most life changing for them, which would be really cool. And I think that that's what's really special, is hearing from people from all over the world and hearing different stories. And that's why I believe, if you're ready to share your story, whatever it may be, share it, because you have no idea whose life you're going to change. You have no idea who's going to be affected by it, or just like you sharing this beautiful person's book,
Beautiful Monster.
Beautiful Monster. There may be someone that might be listening to this that shares it with someone else, and that will change their life for the rest
Yeah.
of their time. You never know. And so that's why I just think that there's such beauty in sharing a story and using your voice for the voiceless. I think it's wonderful. And you're still acting, and that's so amazing. And we're all on hold right now, but hopefully, everything will be changing very soon, and you'll get back into it. What is also something else that you can say, maybe for someone that's on the brink of wanting to do something to change their life, whether it be write a book, whether it's start a new job, what is something that you could leave with them, some sort of tip of inspiration to make that next step to break through?
I think what's helped me, because even writing a book was something very new, and I had my
Completely,
fair
yeah.
share of doubt and like, oh my God, people are going to laugh about this. And so what helps me always is it's good not to have it all figured out. I am
Mm,
not supposed to have it all figured out. I'm here learning. And also, I can offer a fresh perspective
right,
because I'm coming from a new, I'm not an expert at it. So maybe I'm going to see things
right.
differently. Yeah. And look at it like it's an opportunity to learn. That's
Mm.
amazing.
Yes, I love that. It's an opportunity to learn. Oh my gosh. And then
Yeah.
the organization, you are giving 50% of the proceeds to
Give an hour.
Give an Hour. Oh my gosh. And how did you get involved with them?
So the founder of Give an Hour, Dr. Barbara Van Dalen, was a consultant on the TV show that I just did
Oh,
that dealt
cool.
a lot with suicide and depression. She was a consultant to the writers to make sure that all the
Wow.
scripts depicted
Fabulous.
mental health and in an accurate and sensitive manner. And so I met her. She visited set one day and hit it off with her, and I got involved with the organization. And then, yeah, a couple years later during COVID, that I was in touch with them, and
Right.
that's how
Wow.
this relationship sort of
Right.
blossomed into a partnership in this great, really amazing adventure.
It is an adventure. And I think that it's so nice to hear when sets and productions actually use people in the right way of the right organizations and the right voices who know how to kind of shape mental health and mental illness to be able to bring it to a viewership where it's real, it's accurate, and they have the resources to share. If you're feeling this way, this is numbers to call, these are the resources, because so many
And for
times,
people to feel seen, and there's so much
oh
stigma.
yes,
And
there's so much stigma.
yeah.
And you see people, I mean, even just a few years ago you would see some shows and they would depict bipolar disorder, and you're like, what world are, like, did you talk to one person maybe that even like lived with this? Because if you did, you wouldn't be portraying it this way. Or you make it out to seem like every person who lives with bipolar disorder is a murderer, you know what I mean? Like, certain things like that. And for me, it's been very touchy. I mean, I can laugh about certain things, but also I want to know that there are people out there who are living with the same disorder as I am that are being heard and are being seen and are finding resources and finding that they're seeing themselves, on the television or the movie, being like, wow, so people can understand, they can have empathy for this, right?
Mhm.
And have understanding. So I think that every time I hear something like that someone's on a set and they're really helping out, and that the actors then are resonating enough to want to get involved and work with these companies and bring awareness, because listen, it's still such a stigma, and it's still such a stigma on set.
And it's isolated. My brother, I talk about it in the book briefly, but my brother was a heroin addict, and he passed away when he was
Oh,
young. But
sorry.
he was HIV
Wow.
positive, and it was in the 90s. And I remember when I learned about it, I did not share that with anyone
No, no.
because people were not educated. There was so much fear. There was so much stigma. And I think also humor is a great thing to deal to.
Humor is the best thing
Yes.
it's the best medicine.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there is something in you have to have humor and you have to have some sort of levity when it comes to mental illness and mental health, especially in the field of work that you're doing, right? Of going on set and getting off. I mean, you have to, there has to be some sort of a moment. And again, another reason why I have a podcast, because I'm hoping to make it funny and light, and it doesn't have to be, oh my God, we're going to talk about mental health and like, oh my gosh, all these like dark, heavy things. And like, that's it. It's like, no, let's look at not just the positive bullshit, but like, let's look at the fun of it. You know what I mean? Let's hear stories like these things. It's okay to laugh.
Yes.
It's okay to do these things. It's okay. So I love that. Stephanie, I'm going to ask you my final question that I ask everyone on the show. What is your emotional support?
Oh, my emotional support is Otis. He's right here lying down next to me.
God, stop it.
I mean, that's part of my emotional support.
That's a big part.
Yes. But love, I would say actually the big one is love. Love that I get and love that I give, because that's how I feel connected. And to me, everything's about connecting on a real level with yourself and others.
Oh
so
my gosh,
maybe
I love that.
Connect is the emotional.
Yeah, I love that. No one's ever said that. Connect. So I love that. And in all the episodes, this has been really fabulous. I'm so happy. How can everyone get the book? How can everyone follow you?
Thank you so much. You can get the book anywhere. Amazon is really good for new authors and new books, I think, but Barnes and Noble, independent bookstores, and follow me on Instagram. Steph Shortstack is my handle.
Shortstack. Oh my God, that's so cute. I'm going to have a link at the bottom too. How do you pronounce your last name though in general, so I know?
Szostak.
Szostak. Okay,
like
so
you're going to a show, or like show me your stack.
I love that. That should be the name of your next autobiography. Show me your stack. And then people will know what stack means. Like, is it your boobs? Is it your down under? Like, what is the show me your stack? And then you're going to be like, it's actually my life story. Thank you so much. So there you go. I gave you that name. There you go.
Thank you, Al.
This is going to be awesome.